Hey, cross country did.
Okay.
They placed third.
So.
And Branson got fifth, and lots of Branson's friends are in this class. So.
Okay. So, and the idea, first of all, let's give success, or at least merit and due for those who had success where it is due. No, that includes cross country. But don't put that on me in the sense of like not checking, because I feel like I've like checked for extracurriculars and given opportunities for people to say it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people will omit it and not say or whatever. So first things first. Livy, for volleyball, you guys won yesterday, right? Against, so yes, third hour got some, but you guys will get some too.
Can we get one more for this week?
And I gave you 3, right? Because
that works.
we also had cross country, and I did ask third hour. So Ryan was a little, I couldn't hear it. So what was the breakdown again? Lauren and Lucas, are you guys in cross country? What was the breakdown? How did it go?
It was good. We're going to state.
Great, we'll take that. We will take that. That's awesome.
Why did it go like that on both stadiums?
So 2, 3. Very good. When is state?
Next Wednesday.
I think it's
The 21st?
Interesting.
How do you guys know and I don't?
Because I rode with Branson.
So it really is like all-terrain running in that sense in Cache. Well, in Utah, because it could be more, I don't know, I guess maybe there's certain years that there's snow on the ground.
Well, it's in Cedar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well in Cedar then it's easier.
Yeah.
But maybe in
They have to drive down and back in the same day.
No, Branson said that they're getting an Airbnb.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad. Well, Lauren and Lucas, congrats on that. Orion, did I see?
Yeah, band one.
Oh
That's
yeah.
great. So did they have one not over the weekend, but yes?
No, it was over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
It was on Saturday.
So I know they did. There was the Wasatch one from a while ago. There was another invitational,
PBI.
BBI. What was the one this past weekend?
There was like a band. It was at London Ford.
Oh, American Fork. That's got the weight, right? So how did that go? How did?
We got like, I don't know, I don't remember, but we got like significantly higher.
Great. So in the 4 categories, I know in the past, like swept and stuff. How did this one? Because is American Fork in your division? No. Higher one. Okay. Awesome. So really in the state, it feels like you versus American Fork, regardless of classification. But that's awesome though. That's cool to go in the belly of the beast, right? To go there. Very cool. And is there anything else? Yeah.
We have a rec game tonight.
Let's go.
Is that worthy of points or
Rec ball. Well, you gotta tell me how it goes.
Okay,
right?
we will. But
Yeah,
it's
tell me.
Nate and Hunter on the same team. These two are on the same team. No, he's on.
I love rec ball.
Honestly,
it's great.
So apparently they're starting one at the school, and I'm really excited. Intramurals, apparently.
Oh, fun. That'll be
Yeah.
good. Like that's another angle for rec stuff. Cool. Very good. Well, be safe and all that. Good. Good luck today again for volleyball. I hope it goes well. And that's again Skyview today. That's right. And soccer. Good luck in that as well. Now we are missing several students. You already were like addressing the elephant in the room. No political pun intended.
I say.
All right. Feeling pretty good about myself there. But today's just a weird day, man. I feel like I need as many points as I can get. It just feels weird. I don't know why. But I do want to address it. You guys were as well. Oh man, it stinks. It stinks in terms of of COVID positive cases that then affect students who are sitting, and I feel for those individuals who were hit in that swath, and especially because this class I think has had a really good time in trying to get through information, and I think we've had some good discussions. So I feel bad that they are not here. The good news is the state has softened some of its requirements in terms of coming back.
Yes.
So that's good, right? Instead of the full 14 days, they've softened a couple of them.
You have to get a negative test.
Right, you got a negative test. So what we had talked about, Sammy, before, of like, what if you get, a test that's negative? The state has softened some of its guidelines, so that's good. And also,
if you test and it's positive, then that brings even more.
Right. So there is the chance, fairly said, Talia, that if you were to get tested in the hopes of getting negative, but then they get positive. Yes, that's
Like
fair.
we talked about in this class, that information is private.
Is it?
Correct. There is a degree of it that is private. However,
They can't for school.
right, they are more. At the beginning, they were more respectful of that privacy,
They
but
are.
now they are. Like, if you get tested, the Beverly Health Department will pounce on it like a
It
homeless man in
should,
Turkey.
it should.
At this point, because of our high numbers, I think that's a fair response. But Trey, I'm glad you brought it up. That's a change from what it was before, where it was more like, hey, respect privacy. But that does mean it's hard for those who are hit in that swath. But they are softening in terms of coming back, like in that way. But the other good news is it's the fall break thing, right? So Heather, those who are in that situation will hopefully be able to come back sooner because of that and all of that.
So they don't get to go.
So there's that. Yeah.
So if I tested positive and I got Spencer, and then would everyone around Spencer have to do it if he goes and tests positive, or was he?
Hold on, say that from the beginning. Sorry.
Yeah.
Say it from the beginning.
Like, let's say like I test positive, and
Okay.
then Spencer has to go quarantine, and then he gets tested and get negative, and then he gets positive. So now does everyone around him have to go?
So in theory, like Tyler's saying, yeah. So in your case, in this class at least, what would mean is, so this group right here, if you were to be positive, then that group would be in the contact tracing, right?
So can he count his quarantining from the one that I already made him do before he got tested, or does it start from when you test positive?
That's a good question that they could say and jockey for position of like, you've already been out. And so his personal quarantine would probably start then instead of later.
That's whack.
However, that would affect like Araya in this example, right?
Dude,
Like,
that's genius.
Wait,
In
but
the-
just a
you
bowl
don't
of
know
grading,
affects me,
like,
right?
It's like,
Correct.
It does
But while
absolutely
his
nothing.
could have been early served,
it makes it
you would
better.
start then, right?
No.
But
So
Lucas, you're
Why
having
is Trey not quarantined? If
well, and that's what I was clarifying here. So in this Lucas example you gave, if you were to be it, he actually would not have to go for contact tracing.
So what look are you going for with your shoes? The over
I
the
should
boot
just
or
go
the
with train,
under the
then
boot?
train.
It's a little both.
Friends,
Little
have
bit
you
of
ever
both.
owned a pair of Jordans in your life?
Have I ever owned a pair of
Sam
Jordans?
Jordan.
I had some, man, second year edition. Yeah, LeBron James.
Is that
You
when you
had
were
some
driving?
LeBron
Yeah.
twos?
Yeah, I
Is
did.
that when you were
That's
driving
sick.
your C-Class Mercedes?
No, that was that's when I thought I had game.
And
so yeah.
I still do to this day.
I still got them, but they're a little more
Coach wanted to
stuff.
put me in fourth quarter.
Anywho, Lucas, does that explain it for them? Not so much for Spencer, but if he were to have been hit, then it would mean that his would probably already been started.
So basically, don't get tested.
What color?
And then hers would start later in that situation.
Like
Lucas
his started before when he was.
right, most likely, yeah. Does that help
That's like
Yeah.
explain it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anywho, we left off last time. We were talking about coming into office. Your thought homework from last night was, what's a mandate? And not the Charmin Bears hanging out. What is, yes, Talia?
that is not to do with this. Never mind.
Oh, okay, but let's come back to it. Let's define mandate, and we'll come back to it. Mandate, in the sense of a political term, or even in a in a literal term, what does a mandate mean? A requirement. JC, did I see a hand up or no?
No.
You're just saying no.
Is that a
Okay.
requirement?
Requirement. Yeah, absolutely. So in a literal sense, Talia, it's a requirement. Like, I'm mandating that you all have a great weekend. It's Nate, a requirement that you have a great weekend, whether you want to or not. I'm requiring it. In a political sense, then, for some points, what do you guys think it means in a presidential way, Dane?
I'm guessing it's like, if you want my vote, you're gonna have to meet this requirement.
Ooh. Yeah, like, it's not just you individually, but like, if enough of yous, right? If you, Dane, and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people gather together and say, look, President Bush, which we'll give an example of, if you want to get elected, if you want our votes, then you have to do these two policy points. If you don't get this done, that's the whole reason we're voting for you. Then, like, you're not going to get voted into office, and you'll lose our future support. It is a requirement, a mandate. Yes, awesome. Sammy?
Is it the authority to like carry out a policy or a course of action?
Right. There's sort of like a tit for tat in the sense, if you want the vote, Dane, if you want to get the vote, then President, you've got to follow through on this. The President, then Sammy, will turn around and say, Congress, I have to put this into work. I have to make sure that this policy is implemented because the people have spoken. Do you see how, like, the President can turn around? They get elected with that support, but then the President can turn around and get it voted in because it's from the people. Sophie, you were going to say something.
No, you're good.
Is that good? Okay. So let's define it more formally. JC in the notes, mandate.
Under what?
Under coming into office, it's the first bullet point. You want to write down, when a president is chosen.
Have you ever heard what happens like on Inauguration Day? Like how that all. I was watching this thing from National Geographic where it's like they don't start packing any boxes or anything from the previous presidency.
Yes.
It all happens in like 3 hours.
Carpets are pulled up if needed. Redecorating's all done that day.
It's like and the president does like I guess President Obama was like trying to not make it easy for them. So he didn't leave the White House till like 12, so they couldn't start till 12, and then Trump was supposed to be back at the White House by
You're right on.
3.
It's crazy. Inauguration Day has that tradition where it's like all on that day. It's like the crazy parents who won't put any Christmas decorations up until the evening of the 24th of Christmas or December. If any of you have parents who do that, like kudos to them, but that's intense, right?
Yeah.
It's all in like one fell swoop. It's the same thing for the presidency. Very well said. Very well said.
Like holy smokes! And then like they have to go through, and they don't even remove like his envelopes or anything from any of the office till the other president like shake hands or something like that.
Yes.
And then like someone
There's them
go,
showing through. There's that sort of traditional. Let me show you through, and then
they go through like Air Force One and do the like same exact thing. And, oh my gosh, it was like crazy to watch.
Think about, Olivia, if you were to move into a nice palatial estate, and you would have 6 months, maybe, probably not even that much, in which you got to decide all the interior decorating designs. Everything, from the drapes, to the carpets, to the different furniture pieces, the paintings, everything. All those decisions would then have to be implemented within a 24-hour period, less than that.
That's scary.
Does that make sense? That's what happens with the White House. It's like, it's
And
scary.
they can't bring anyone in extra. They just have to use White House staff because it's confidential to see, like all the security stuff.
Security issues, it is crazy. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
But then also, on another side note, the chief of staff then has to go up like with a bill to the first lady, and it's like ceremony to like hand her the bill of everything that like is going to be billed to them from the White House day.
Yes,
Like,
in the sense of the cost, right? As opposed to like a piece of legislation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's weird traditions. We don't have nobility in our country. Does that make sense? But the idea of the first inaugural dance is a tradition that's sort of weird and hokey, but like we want to see that happen. Why? Tradition. Dance for us. Let us all look. Yes, nice dress. Like it's a weird thing that we still do. On top of that, all the changes in one day for the design things, it is. I'm glad you brought it up. But I guess more on the political side of coming into office, the definition for mandate, you want to say when a president is chosen by at least 2/3 of all the people.
Can I say one more thing? I'm so sorry.
Let's
One
define
more thing.
mandate.
Did you know there's a subway underneath the White House? Sorry. I have to say it.
No subway. I knew we had a couple bowling alleys, but
There's a subway underneath
did not
the
know
White
the subway.
House. Yeah. True
So
story.
when a president is chosen by at least 2/3 of all the people,
a Subway restaurant underneath the White House.
I first thought of the train, and then I.
If I was president,
if I don't have an In-N-Out there, I'm not coming in.
They're just gonna pick their favorite fast food restaurant.
But Nixon sort of did that with his bowling alley. He loved to bowl, and he had it happen. But be aware, mandate. When a president is chosen by at least 2/3 of all the people, you want to keep writing here. They usually say it means the people. They usually say. All right, so when a president is chosen by at least 2/3 of all the people. Period or semicolon, whatever. Right? They, meaning he or she, president, usually say it means the people want all of their agenda points to be law. Mandate. When about 2/3 of all the people or more vote for a president, AGENDA. And then they, the president, says, this means that all of my agenda points need to become law. That's mandate. When you have a ton of people who are voting for you, and Charlie, you get elected by like 3/4, like everybody in the country, Charlie votes for you. I'm like, we love Charlie! And yes, Dane, they say, we love you, but we really want the we want fewer taxes, right? They all say, we're only going to vote for you, Charlie, if you have fewer taxes. He gets elected, and then he turns around and says, look, guys, the people have spoken. Whatever they say has to become law. But Brendan, I like the sort of laugh there. There's some problems with mandate theory. There are some definitive problems. They say that all of Charlie's agenda points, everything, has to become law. For some more points. What are some problems of this? It's called mandate theory. We just defined it as mandate. What are some problems of mandate theory? Lucas?
What if all of the laws are really good and they vote him for that, but he has one terrible?
Exactly. I mean, you could be voting for Hitler, right? I say that, not that his own, it's not like he had this wonderful platform, and by the way, like Holocaust, let's do it. Like he didn't do it that way, you know what I mean? But Lucas, if a candidate were to say like all these great ideas, and then finally like, yeah, anybody named Heather's got to go. Sorry, Heather. No matter how wonderfully sunshiny you are today, you got to go. Right? If that were to happen, Lucas, by mandate theory, it must become law. Charlie's like, the people have spoken. It must become law. So the fact is, hint, hint on the test, that there would be a question that were to ask like, define mandate theory and maybe explain some of the problems of it. Maybe. You would define it, right? If 2/3 or more of the people vote for a person coming to office and the president says like, all of my agenda points must become law. The problems are, some of the agenda points could be problematic and not great. What else? What are some other problems of mandate theory? Yeah, Trey?
Maybe they got voted so much for because the other candidate wasn't good.
Exactly. So, Dane, I like the way you said it before of imagining a voter sitting down with Charlie in this exam and saying, hey, I will vote for you, but only for these issues. Does that actually happen? Meaning, does each, 150 million people who will vote, if that, they don't sit down with the president and list it out, right? They just vote for him. They don't tell him why. And so, Trey, it could be because the other candidate sucks, and you're like, I'm going to go with this guy because he's the lesser of two evils. Charlie's a little bit better than the other guy. We're going to vote for him.
Basically, it's today.
It's today. It felt like 2016.
Hey,
Right.
did you see what Trump posted about Biden? It was a bunch of old people, and they said, vote Biden for president, but he crossed out the P. Resident.
That's honestly hilarious.
That's
That
hilarious.
is so pathetic and funny.
And so good, Talia. I like how you're saying that it is so today, right? Like the lesser two evils. Because think about it, even Trump is old, right? We talk about it. But compared to Biden, like not as old, right? So it's like lesser two evils. Yeah, that's exactly the idea. So mandate theory, Trey, could come from, well, not really. It's just I voted for him because he's better than the other guy by a little bit. So it could, Lucas, be that one of their points is bad. It could be that the other person the other candidate just sucks. There are a couple other ideas. Anything else of why mandate theory is problematic? Spencer?
Is one of them like they say they're going to do this and then they don't do it when they get into office and do other stuff?
Well, the idea of supporting a candidate and then we have some fly in here, and then they turn their back on you. That could happen. But I guess I'm thinking more of like, why is the theory flawed from the beginning? Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that it would give too much power to the person that makes the.
Now wait a second.
Is the president.
Wait a second. You're insinuating that the president doesn't just dictate and create laws? How dare you? You know better. I've listened to all the debates. Whoever the president is, all the laws will become the law of the land from them, right? Isn't that correct? Sophie, no. You shook your head. Are you saying that somebody else actually creates laws? Don't laugh, Brendan. This is important. Yes. Trey is like, I will resist. Okay, I know it's like the silly thing. Who creates, Sophie, who creates laws?
The legislative.
Legislative branch, the legislature. They're the ones who create laws. Good job, by the way, yesterday, volleyball, right?
And again today.
And yes, again today, we're prophetically speaking. Yes. But Trey and Sophie are right. You're totally right in that the legislative branch is the one that creates the laws. So it's a farce. It's built on a couple lies. One is, Lucas, some of their policy points could be bad. One is the other candidate could just suck and they vote for them instead. Another one, Trey, is even if everybody wants their agenda points, is it the president who says, they say this, make it law?
Nope.
Not really. They can propose stuff, but Talia could equally go into the Congress and say, here's an idea, listen to me. And they could give them a proposal. The president doesn't really have any constitutional extra powers to propose it. They do, and they take advantage of it, and they give a State of the Union, but it's not like literally in the Constitution to say it. So it could be that they don't actually have the power. They're assuming too much power, right? Yeah, that's a problem. They don't have the power to do it. There's one other thing that I'm thinking of. George W. Bush called for this. In 2004, he won by about 58% of the vote, electoral vote, and pretty much the popular vote to win. Does that satisfy enough to be a mandate? According to him, it did, because math. I guess his concept, if you will, native math, maybe a little more fluid. But mandate theory can be abused where if you're voted into office, they say, whatever I said must become law. Wait, that's not true right there. Shut up. Close enough, right? Like, mandate theory can be stretched.
Like a dictatorship?
Yeah, because they say, I'm voted in Congress, suck it, because I'm the one who is the leader of the free world. Talia, so they push that boundary. So any of these examples could be used, absolutely, on the test. Problems of, well, they might not want, Lucas, all of those policy points to become law. They might just want a lot of them, or one of them. Or Trey, it might mean that the other person just stinks. Or it might mean that we're assuming too much power in the presidency. That's not how it happens. Or, Talia, they're stretching that too far to mean if they win at all, they therefore have a mandate. That's not correct. George W. Bush tried to use it because if you were in office, you probably would too. Like, hey, I want to get some momentum going, right? George H.W. Bush called it the Big Mo. And Maisie's looking online to see what he said on the subject, right?
Definitely.
Got it. Okay.
What are agenda points?
Great. I'm glad you asked that. I might be assuming too much here. No. It's a good question. Good question. So, Nicole, if you were to watch the national convention for the Democrats or the Republicans, when they say, like, Joe Biden is our candidate or Trump is our candidate, they will say a couple things of these are our policy points, Sarah, platform points,
So basically, what
or
do you like believe in?
agenda points. What does the Democratic Party believe in right now? Specifically, they want to reassess police forces and what they do. Specifically, they want to have more tight control over COVID spread. Specifically, they want to, at the same time, be more open to immigration and more stimulus packages for lower income families, right? Whereas the Republican Party is a little different. They're going to be, Sarah, their agenda points are more open to control for states, so they have more control of what they do. They will not be giving as many tax-based stimulus packages for families because they say, hey, free market economics, we'll give you some stimulus package. Those are, I hope, Sarah, that makes sense. Those are the agenda points. So then Biden, if you were to win by 70%, he'd turn around and say, the people have spoken, Congress, you got to get on. Mandate theory is a little iffy, but they love it. If you're president, you win big, you're like, sweet. All of my wildest dreams will come true, right? Okay. Thank you. I was hoping somebody would get that. That's good. Thank you, Pedro. Okay, so the second thing you're going to write down here into coming into office, and Talia, I did not forget. I will get back to you about the comment.
No. It's so off topic. It's not even.
Okay. We can.
I will talk after class.
Fair enough. The second thing you're going to write down here is the best time for the president to push for his or her agenda. The best time to push, the best time for the president to push for his or her agenda is when? Is when? Beginning of what?
Their term.
Yes, exactly. So the best time for the president to push for his or her agenda is the first 100 days. We'll get specific here.
And who first coined the term? FDR.
Wow, Tyler, I like it.
Wait,
Tyler.
That's
wait,
impressive.
what?
So the best time for a president to push his or her agenda is the first 100 days. This is the second thing you're writing down. And people will look at how do you say this? Some people get concerned when they say, like, the president has expanded their powers. Trey, you were even mentioning it before. We talked about it. Has the president expanded their powers?
Yes.
Absolutely. Some say, well, the Republicans did it, or so the Democrats did. Both parties have done it. You could easily say FDR and Nixon both expanded the powers tremendously of the presidency. Right? So FDR, Charlie, during the Great Depression, he's like, time of crisis, let's go. So he expanded those powers. That's why FDR was saying, the first 100 days of my office, I have a mandate, Dane, to put into policy things that I talked about. Same thing for Nixon. He won by big margins, and he's like, I'm going to expand the powers of the presidency. So don't get it twisted. Don't say, like, the Democrats want to have too much presidential power. Okay, FDR did that, right? And okay, Obama's done that. But you can look at the Republicans. It's a trend for both because they like the power, right? The Republicans will expand the powers. War powers for George W. Bush, Patriot Act, those types of things, they expanded the powers. It's been a trend. But be aware that the first 100 days is a huge time. In fact, when we see, it could be Trump elected, it could be Biden elected. I promise you, I will bet my children's non-existent college funds on the fact that
Wish you were a lawyer.
in the first 100 days, meaning after inauguration, you will see a basically on CNN, MSN, BC, or Fox, you will see, Esther, like a countdown, right? First 100 days. And they'll say each day, that's the window, sort of artificial, for the president to say what again?
His agenda.
His agenda. It could be a mandate, right? Because, Dane, if they get elected by enough, but it could just be agenda. Okay, for 5 points, what was President Trump's biggest agenda point, platform point in 2016? The biggest one.
Oh.
So that was his slogan, right? MAGA, Make America Great. Now there attached to it were a couple things. The biggest one, among getting Midwest jobs, right? Factory jobs back into Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio. The wall. The wall. Talia's that what you say?
And the business.
But the biggest reason why he was elected based on survey data, now they could have lied on surveys, was stricter immigration policy. Specifically, the wall. What was that?
A lot of people want that.
Yeah, and that's what helped. We believe, Talia, and I say we, political scientists believe, that he was able to get independent voters, even some voters who went with Obama in 2008, 2012, because the problem is immigration policy is, pardon my French and my explicit nature, is redonkulous.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm sorry, that was pretty rough. I should have
So
warned you.
damn rough. I can't
I'm sorry.
I'm writing this in my diary.
But honestly, Lucas, like immigration policy, Democrat, it sucks right now. Like, however you look at it, it's unclear, it's a mess, and so the idea of a wall, of having something stricter, got pretty popular, and it rode a wave of momentum that got him into office. At least on polling data, they said the number one reason they voted for him was stricter immigration policy. They were looking in the first 100 days, right? And they're looking 100 days. Will a wall or anything immigration-wise be passed? Will a comprehensive immigration bill be passed?
The wall did not happen.
But we had a Republican Senate and a Republican House. Shouldn't that have happened?
Yeah.
Yes. Second agenda point. Midwest manufacturing jobs. All right, 100 days, there's going to be some new policy put in place that is comprehensive, that encourages more companies to stay.
No.
No, didn't Harley Davidson do something weird?
Guys, the fact is, it is uncanny that a Republican House and Senate could not join forces with President Trump and get it done in the first 100 days. I think Republicans were very hesitant occasionally. They're like, this guy's different and weird, and we don't really like him, so we're not going to really help him out. Does that make sense?
Well,
It was intense. Yeah, Tali?
I think also this was one thing that helped him but also hurt him, is the way he went about the immigration laws. Is it wasn't about like, okay, we can't just have like all these immigrants come,
Right.
and like, but he went about it as they are bad. Like he like blames Mexico
Yeah.
for drugs and the Middle East for like terrorists, and so then some people were like he blamed them as bad.
Right. Yeah, and in fact, his announcing of his presidential candidacy was sort of volatile, like, whoa, he went there. I think that makes sense for Republicans, moderate Republicans, say even Mike Lee or Orrin Hatch at the time, that they were concerned if we attach our names to anything from a President Trump agenda thing on immigration, that it will come back to bite us in the butt because it's too extreme, right? They're like, we agree with what you want to do, but like, we're worried about how you're doing it. So maybe that's why Republicans, it's crazy to me to think, you guys had control, like you could have pushed any law you wanted to, right? But they resisted, they held back, meaning President Trump's first 100 days were very inactive. There was no major policies passed at all in the first 100 days, but that's the time for a couple more points. Why is it again important in the first 100 days? Why?
Because that's your reputation.
That's
for
your
the rest of
impression.
That's the impression. People are looking at like, this is your time in office. We're not paying attention as much in the end. Very good.
Because
And-
people vote right then for someone new. So when someone comes in new, you're looking for a change. Then.
Exactly. It's a little more plausible for the president to go to Congress when they're first elected in. And mind you, Heather, all of Congress has been maybe elected in new, right? Maybe. Not likely for 435. But it's easier. All the people in the country have voted for one person. It's easier for the president to come and say, hey, Congress, I rule, you suck because they all voted for me and you guys had sort of a mixed result bag. I'm telling you what's going to happen. These are my agenda points. Get it done. And they're more likely to be like, well, he is more popular than we are. Let's sort of work with him, right? There's a little bit of momentum there. Tyler?
Also, like, I think a big part of the first and last 100 days is that people tend to remember the very start and the very end.
Yeah.
But then the middle is kind of like meh.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally.
So it's like,
Totally.
I think people tend to pay attention more to the first 100 days and then
Well
they're
said.
like, oh, they kind of have their opinion built.
Absolutely, well said. The idea at the end, and the end being different for campaigning purposes, right? The first part is like, this is my time to make laws. The end is like, I got to spin it to where I'm winning, right? Yeah.
So, oh, were you?
No, you're good. Trey, yes,
So
Trey.
if Trump wins, will Republican agendas be pushed this time, or will it
His
happen, the same thing
agenda-
happen again?
Oh, great question.
What is
Great.
the agenda now?
So the Republican Party's agenda, which President Trump, Sarah, is attached to, right? The national, every time they have a national convention, there's two things that are done. They announce the VP candidate, right? And the second thing is they announce their platform, which could change every 4 years. Sophie, it could change. They thought with Jeb Bush maybe winning in 2016, it would have changed where the Republicans would have grouped in Latino and Latina votes and helping that group come into the Republican Party instead of the Democratic Party. That agenda point, Sarah, was scrapped, didn't work. So instead, they were looking at the agenda points, what's the right way to say this? They were looking at the agenda points for the Republicans to go sort of immigration hard, Midwest jobs hard. Those are the 2 points that really was the agenda in 2016. In 2020, the biggest,
I feel like it's just like I've done it for 4 years, so vote me again.
yeah, you don't change horse midstream. Incumbents have that advantage, right? Like, that's the idea. I would say his two biggest agenda points would be, if you want the country to be shut down and in lockdown, vote Democrat. If you want there to be more freedom of movement for businesses and jobs, keep Trump in office. That's one, okay? Does that make sense? Does that idea make sense of like, we're not going to close state borders, we're going to allow there to be transport. If businesses want to open, we'll allow that to happen. Number two is, while COVID has hurt the economy, go with us because we will have more tax-friendly policies that encourage businesses to get open and get back. Because think about it, prior to COVID, the economy was doing amazing, right? And even now, the economy's not doing great, but considering that it's COVID, I personally thought it would be much worse. I gotta
thought
be
it was
honest.
gonna be like a recession.
I thought it would be a recession, and it has not been there.
It hasn't even been like
No,
that. I've been
it could
really
happen
surprised.
next year, like it could. Economy's weird that way, but it hasn't. So the second thing is economics of keep us in office because we will have tax policies that don't crush businesses, right? If you want to start something up, Sophie, you don't have to pay 80% of your income in taxes.
And I feel like now more than
Right.
ever we kind of need that because a whole bunch got shut down with COVID.
Right, so that's what makes it hard to decipher between the two candidates. Because they're really having, in some ways, similar basic campaign points, but it's like, which style do you like more? So that's the campaign, back, Sarah, to your question of, they want, hey, we're gonna have a little bit open for movement and businesses and gatherings, and we're also going to have favorable tax policies. Biden's platform is gonna be more of, we're gonna be more strict on social gatherings because we want to help clamp down more strictly against COVID. And some of you are like, that sounds great, right? Some of you are like, that doesn't. And the second thing is we're going to increase taxes to help pay for people who are lower income right now who need help. Does that make sense? That's really the two different platform points. So Trey, your question of if Trump were to be elected, that first 100 days is what they'll be pushing for is let's allow social gatherings to happen. Let's also allow for taxes to be cut and encouraging businesses to grow that way. You're going to see probably a revamped stimulus package passed next year if Trump were to be elected in the first 100 days. Immigration, ironically, in his 8 years, if he is elected to a second term, I don't think immigration will. I don't. Even though like people are like, we need to do it, I don't think it will. That's not a ding on him as much as, I don't know, it's too controversial, I guess. That's my prediction. Yeah, Sam?
I thought he was like building part of the wall. Like,
They did, absolutely.
Like 3 miles of it.
Say it one more time?
It was 3 miles of it.
Yeah, he wasn't getting help from Congress to do it, so he appropriated funds as the chief executive to just start going on it, right? And it did get started in a way. There was no congressional backing on it, and so it sort of was left to die. I don't know if it'll be continued. My guess, Sammy, is it's unlikely that immigration, which is ironic, right? Which is a big part of how he got in office. It might not be at all anything he does. Whether you hate or love Obama, at least he got Obamacare through by force feeding it down. It sort of went through. Yeah.
But the important thing, like if you're wanting stricter immigration, it's not about the wall. The more important thing is about the laws that are made, like making the laws more strict on immigration policies.
And making it easier for people to
Yes.
do it our way.
What Trey and Sarah are talking about here is going to break Esther's brain because I know I love her reactions to this. It's so much easier just to say, go to wall. Then we're going to have a comprehensive immigration reform in which we look at the money spent for each of the legal fees that's used there and having a difference of 7 years versus maybe 3 years of having resident status that then translates into a visa. Go to wall. Right? Like, does that make sense? That's the thing that they sell, the strategy
I
behind
feel
it.
like everyone can kind of agree with that. Like, I don't know. I feel like Republicans and Democrats alike can be like, yeah, immigration needs to be easier. There needs to be strict laws, but we also need to make it faster. Like, why can't we just? That's why I get frustrated with the candidates because they're not our best to offer, and they're still like the only ones we're voting for.
It is
we can offer so much better.
It is
than
a
the
challenge,
other
I think, as we talk about how it's limited here. I think there's somebody else with 400 million people in the country. There has to be somebody who could articulate ideas in an understandable way on both sides and focus, as Talia and Ellie has mentioned before. Forget what being right, do what's right.
Jesus Christ.
Right?
Honestly, at this point.
There's some times, Sammy, it's like,
Jonathan Isaac.
Jesus, take the wheel.
That's a song. That's a pretty good song.
That's a pretty good song, but yeah, okay.
I've had that experience.
There we go. Okay, here we go. Underpowered. Just saying. Underpowered. What are the two, guys? We've alluded to this before. In the U.S., the Constitution itself, Article 2, it talks about how you get elected and all that stuff. There are only 2 powers the Constitution gives to the president. There's only 2.
Commander-in-Chief?
Commander-in-Chief. Very good. That's one of them, so let's write down
That's worth 2
Commander-in-Chief.
points. 3 points.
I will give you 3
1 for
points. That's absolutely worthwhile. 1, 2, 3. Commander-in-Chief. Not and chief, but Commander-in-Chief. And we can break that down first, but anybody know what the other one is? The other one isn't as well known, but it's like very important. Think of Liddy for World Civ, and a couple I've had you too in World Civ.
Veto?
That's a good check. We'll get to his power. That's a check. Very good. But in terms of just outright power, like foreign
affairs, like managing things about
yeah, foreign affairs, embassies, ambassadors. This is what the thing about Livy for some points in England, they separate the head of government, head of state, right? This is his head of state powers of like, I'm in charge of treaties in a way, foreign issues, ambassadors, I'm the figurehead, hello, you know, I'm the president. We call that the chief diplomat. So we've got, if you don't have it down there, we've got commander-in-chief, and the second one is chief diplomat. Chief Diplomat. All right, Chief Diplomat. Okay, Commander-Chief means what? What does that term mean?
Like he's the head of the military.
Absolutely, absolutely, Spencer. Very good. He's the head of the military. Is he actually part of the military?
Not always.
Sometimes they'll have, and Hunter has mentioned this before. Like, do they need military experience? They can. Doesn't have to. It's not required. They are not required. The moment, even like Eisenhower, right? The moment he becomes president and is sworn into office, he forswears any of his military allegiance at that point. This is the weird irony. He is a civilian, he or she, but is also the head of what? The military. Why did our founders specifically make it that way? They could have had it as to where like, okay, you have to have 10 years of military experience, you have to be a general, at least 3 stars, whatever, and then you can run for office.
14 years, or 13. Like,
Yeah.
What would be 10 years?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, come on. Nothing round like that.
Right.
Weird.
Are you kidding me?
Livy, why?
Just like how we talked about with Nigeria, them having like military leaders, because like they'll be more military minded than like war minded. So it's better that they're just a citizen and not like a general.
Awesome. Awesome. In that way of like, we don't want government to be too quick to fire, you're exactly right. We want a civilian. To where they're like, do we want to nuke a country? No, because like I'm a civilian, I don't feel comfortable with that. Like I don't have military experience. If I had too much military experience or was over in the military still, I might be more trigger happy, for lack of a better term. Yeah, the founders specifically said, nah, we want them to not be in the military. They're the top civilian who's actually over the military. That's what Commander-in-Chief means. Good.
Also, because then you don't have to have like so many opinions. It's just like, okay, go.
Right, okay, so this is the other strategy. As opposed to having like a council, right? The founders could have said, yeah, there's a joint chiefs of staff, I get that, and yeah, there's a Pentagon. But they could have made it where like they really made the calls on it, right? This is cool. Alexander Hamilton believed that, Garrett, you need an energetic executive. Ultimately, why the articles failed is there was no real head. There was no head. It was like the crazy cat lady with all the cats who did their own thing, right? That's Confederacy. As Tyler is saying, Commander-in-Chief means we need somebody to, the buck stops here. Truman was famous for that. The buck stops here.
That's why he's the guy who carries around the black football.
And so, right, the nuclear codes and all that, that's it. It's on you. We need to hold you accountable. And so we don't want a trigger happy person, but when decisions need to be made, Tyler, we want it to be with one person and not just a council. Or they say, well, they said this or that. No, it's up to you, man. It's up to you. See a hand up? All right, Chief Diplomat. We already alluded to this, Sarah, and you were saying this, but what is diplomacy? You know what that's what diplomat means, right? What's diplomacy?
You are at another country representing the United States.
Right, like in a foreign way, international way. And good diplomacy is like, hi, I want to increase relations. So, and you might think, come on, 2 people in a room are actually going to increase like 800 million people's diplomacy and standard of living. Yeah. I mean, Sophie, there's that song, right, for Hampton, like, I want to be the man in the room or whatever.
Where it happens.
Where
it happens.
I know exactly what I'm talking about.
But okay, you guys know what I'm talking
No,
about.
I literally know what you're talking about. I just can't think of it.
But there's
I
the scene,
know
there's
The room where it happens.
the room where it happens. That's it. The room where it happens. Yes.
So he'll be able to say it
Sorry.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah. The room, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you for a second. I
Well, the
thought you were
first time
stumbling
was
through it
bad, and the
too.
second time was
Yes. The room where it happens. Sarah, you want to be in the room where it happens because ultimately treaties, negotiations, relationships are based a lot of times just on a person. On a person. President Obama, while he apologized a lot and did the apology tour, he was like a smooth character. People seem to like him internationally because, yeah,
For what?
when he first came into office, he felt that the U.S. had been too much of a police of the world and wanted to go around, Sarah, apologizing to countries like Japan, like Iraq.
Oh, I thought you meant you went around the U.S. and like apologized.
No, internationally, like he went around. Like it was a famous scene in which he was in Japan, and to their leadership, he bowed. But the traditional bow for Japan, you do this. The more you bow, you're almost like groveling and it was so uncouth, and like he went this far down, and you're like, are you a servant to Japan now? Because he was apologizing for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Which,
Didn't we already apologize for it?
that was 70 years ago. And I thought
As the
We
chief
all did.
diplomat, these things are scrutinized, right? Chief diplomat. You could say, to be honest, President Trump's time as chief diplomat has been quite successful. His peace deal between United Arab Emirates and Israel was groundbreaking. He was nominated twice for the Nobel Peace Prize, specifically for that. Trump
That's
was, yeah.
sick.
That's actually
And because he actually has tried to broker deals as a chief diplomat, that type of negotiating, it matters,
The
right?
media always, like, I've always heard from the media, like, Trump hates all the other countries, but like, he's actually helped.
Guys,
Dang, I didn't even know that.
he has done, as a chief diplomat, a pretty good job. Now, mind you, his relationship with Mexico,
Awful.
awful,
He actually pays
He's one of the
taxes
few
in
people
other
that-
countries too.
awful, but like internationally, he's done a good job with that in terms of being a negotiator. Chief diplomat is that. He is the head. When anybody is a new ambassador, they are assigned by him. There's a formal process that they're sworn in under his jurisdiction. The buck stops with him, not just military, but any embassy, State Department, ambassadors. It's with the president. So, like right now, the owner of the New York Jets is the ambassador.
Jets are terrible, by the way.
And guys, this is why, one of the main reasons, Jets are always terrible, but one of the main reasons why they're, Lucas, especially terrible right now is their owner, who had a ton of say in what was happening, general manager, all that stuff. He has for the last 4 years been an ambassador to the UK. He was assigned, he's a friend of Trump, and he was assigned there as the ambassador. So that's why some Jets fans are like, please Trump, lose.
And that's why.
So he will come
So that
home
the Jets
and
can't
be a
win.
better
That is so stupid. They would rather have their basketball team do good than our country.
I
But
feel like-
It is a book.
I feel like it's not all his fault
I
though,
don't think
because
that Knicks.
he.
I got confused.
You're good.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Knicks, right?
No, it's not okay. I'm just trying to help you out.
Say it one more time, Spencer.
There was just the Jets stuff about their coach. Their coach is bad.
Right, and maybe I think Woody Johnson's name. Maybe he would have like fired him earlier.
Yeah,
Got
like-
to change it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
sometimes
He's
I think you're one of the
distracted.
smartest people I know, and then other times we pull out and we're like,
Okay, guys, can I give you 5
Belichick's
points?
trade coach for the Jets though. That was
We
insane.
get
no,
5
we
points, we made it.
we actually need 8.
We already made
No, I
it.
thought we already have it.
Guys-
We have it. We literally have it.
Can I give you?
That's 100 right there. That's
Yeah.
250.
Can I give you 5 points? I know we have not gone through. I will do a review online that was asked by our dearly loved Kennedy. I will do a review online like we did last time, but can we just push through to the end and not do a break? I know we've not had a
Well,
break.
we have
I
5
understand that.
minutes,
Can we
so
just
it's
push
okay.
through for 5 points? Can we do that?
Bing.
You got your, okay.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4,
We actually need
5.
8.
No,
No, we don't.
You can't count, man.
Wait, are we already
All right,
there?
No, we're
stick with it, stick with it.
points.
Guys,
130 points.
so commander-in-chief and chief diplomat, those are the responsibilities. Sophie, in the Constitution, it specifically says, and I don't know what this thing is called, like a bracket or whatever, but like, let's say Heather has her lovely writing here, commander-in-chief and chief diplomat. There's one of these things, I don't know what that's called. A bracket or margin or, I don't know what it's called.
Wait, what do we write under chief diplomat?
Parentheses.
Chief
In
diplomat.
charge of foreign
Fancy bracket.
diplomacy. I mean, really, Sarah, chief diplomat is in charge of foreign diplomacy, ambassadors, treaties. Because, Sammy, the Senate might have to confirm the treaties, right? But they have to be created. That's why Woodrow Wilson looks like such a dumb.
Whoa, good save, good save.
A donkey.
A donkey.
In charge of formal what?
That'll be
Diplomacy, yeah. He looked bad because after World War I, right? You guys remember this? Maybe he did his whole points of international cooperation were the basis on which they created the League of Nations. And so he's coming back, so he'll be like, look what I did in Europe. This is great, Senate. And what did the Senate do? Put it down. So it's like the irony. This international thing is based on a president whose Senate didn't even support them joining. But still, the president gets to negotiate, right? So in charge of foreign diplomacy, Talia, foreign policy, ambassadors, any of that counts. But this lovely bracket, I want you to do this because I want you to understand, can the president do the commander-in-chief and chief diplomat by him or herself?
No.
Who does he need to help him?
His cabinet.
Yes. What else?
Advisors.
Yes. What else?
Congress.
Well, they already helped in terms of passing the law that he signed.
What's the question?
With Congress.
So Congress already helped by passing law. This is after to enforce it. Who does he need help to enforce this thing? I know so. People. Okay, let's get. So we have cabinet, diplomats, people. What? Law enforcement. What do we group all these things under? What?
Bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy. There you go. There you go. We have it up there. Yes, FBI. So in that lovely little bracket here, you want to write down bureaucracy. And if you don't know how to spell it, then oh well. Bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. What is bureaucracy again? We covered this already back in the name game. What is this?
It's,
Thing that's closest to
they're
executive.
hired by the government.
They're hired by the government. Are they elected?
No,
Nope. And they're closest related to what branch?
Executive.
Executive. So that's why in this section of the chief powers, he can only do it with the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, military, police, IRS, right? Especially for these two. So how many people are in the bureaucracy for 5 points?
5 million.
Say one more time?
5 million?
Yeah. We have about 5 million. Yep. We went from 4.5 million, Sammy. It's a good day.
I'm gonna work there one day.
1, 2,
I wanna work
3, 4.
Wait, is the behavioral analysis unit a real thing or not?
Yes. Yes.
Have you seen Criminal Minds?
Yeah.
Wait, it's a real thing?
Yeah. Now, mind you, bureaucracy, if you're going on the state level, it could be bureaucracy for the state or for the federal, right? In fact, there's a couple in this class. I sincerely hope, as you get older, I sincerely hope I get a call from the FBI who does specific background checks for people who work in the State Department. No, I won't be like, that's right, they're horrible. Because that to me says that you will work in the State Department. I've had one kid in my 10 years who works in naval intelligence, and there's an FBI guy who came back and he grilled me on him, and I feel so bad because he sort of acted
Like a terrorist?
he sort of acted not like a terrorist, he sort of acted like he partook of certain things.
What does that mean?
Drugs. He acted like he's not partaking in soccer.
Right? And so I had to be very truthful, but I never saw that, never saw a ding on drug
He
test.
lost his job.
But he didn't. He actually still got it. But I told him very clearly, that's a concern of mine. But I hope that there's a couple background checks for kids in this class, because I think there are some kids here who could do a great job in the State Department. Really? So anything in the bureaucracy.
Spencer, actually, no,
Wait,
Liz
is
might
this
be
class
so
right
Spencer,
now?
I'll get you.
Yeah, in this class right now.
Just say it. It's not even.
Hello, it's gonna be today. We all know you're thinking it.
Tell you this, at the end of the try, I want to tell you my voting record if you want to know. And if you're curious, I've told one or two of you already. But I think there's a couple of you that if you want to know, I'll let you know who I think should be going for. When I say bureaucracy, I'm talking National Security Agency. I'm talking the Secretary of State's Department, the State Department.
NSA.
I'm talking NSA. Okay, I'm saying that some of you could do well on that. All right. So guys, that's power. Hey, on Monday, we'll review a bit. We'll finish up on the back page. You can rest assured that Monday you will see a lovely review module like we did for the first unit, right? And we'll do the test on Tuesday. Guys, great job today. Really, really good. I was wondering about you. I saw that. I was like, she probably wants to.